What's happening, good people? Welcome to the channel. I'm Wes, aka Mr. Budget Watch. Today we're going to be doing a review of this AddiesDive. This is actually the first AddiesDive I've had on the channel, and I thought I'd start off with one of their more affordable offerings, and then obviously if I like it, then I'll maybe get a couple more on the channel. So this is the MY050S, and it's I believe a Luminox homage. I'm not sure which Luminox model it is, but I think it's a homage of a Luminox. So as always, let's start off with the size and weight. And link for this will be in the description as well if you're interested. So this one is a pretty big one at 45mm, and that's from the 20 up to the 50. That goes up to 49.7 including the crown, so it's a fairly big one. It's 13.8mm thick, so it is a it's not the thickest, but it's got some some heft to it. We have 22mm lugs, and it is 50.5 lug to lug. 145 grams with 6 links removed to fit my wrist. 50 meters of water resistance. A mineral crystal with a art coating, which is very nice to see. We have an alloy case, 361L steel case back, a steel bracelet, a 60-click unidirectional bezel. So starting with the bezel first, and you can see it is a Luminox style. We have a pip at the 12 which is loomed, and then little batons to indicate minutes all the way around to 20. Every 5 minutes we have a raised portion of the bezel, and then every other 5 minutes we have a flat. They are engraved and it is filled with white paint. The bezel is like I mentioned, a 60-click unidirectional, and here is the action. So it's not the best, it's a little ratchet, and the play and wobble is horrendous. One of the worst bezels I've ever encountered, to be honest. I mean, the action is it's mediocre. Clicks are pretty decent, but just the movement in it is horrendous. It's so bad. It also doesn't align properly. You can see it sits a little bit to the left when it's clicked into place. You can actually backplay it to line up, but that's not actually clicked in place anymore. And you can see, it does move, and it does move when it's in place as well, and when it's not clicked in place. So the bezel is really not that good at all. It looks pretty cool, the grip is decent, but it's just terrible. So moving in a little bit more, you can see we have a plain black inner ring, and then a chapter ring with loomed like little cylinders, which are pretty cool. I'll talk more about the Lume in a minute. You can also see we have a printed minute track as well. So moving in again, you can see we've got some printed numerals all the way around, apart from at the 3 o'clock where we've got a little date window. So the date window is bordered and white. Would have been nice if they just deleted the date window, to be fair, because I just think it sort of throws off the design a little bit. You can also see we've got a 24-hour ring as well. And next to that we have the AddiesDive logo and branding, and then above the 6 we've got the water resistance rating. So as to the dial, it's just a flat matte orange dial, so there's no texture on it at all, but I do really like this. They also do it in a black as well if you're not a fan of the orange, and the black does have contrasting white printing instead of black, obviously, because you wouldn't be able to see it. So to the handset, they're really simplistic fence post styles, and again they've got those little tubes in the center which are Lume filled. So speaking of the Lume, it's actually better than I thought. It does get pretty bright, it lasts a decent amount of time, and it's actually better than some more expensive watches. I was not expecting that. You guys might know which brand I'm referring to, but the Lume is better than what I thought. I mean, for the price point, I can't complain really. If it was like a 50-60 quid watch, then yeah, I would complain a little bit, but as it's very cheap, the Lume is fantastic for the price. Cannot complain at all. Taking a look at that side profile, you can just see how thick that bezel is with its coin edge, and then there's nothing really too much to note. We've got this like PVD sandblasted looking style finish, and it's really nice. So I've got no complaints really with the finishing. It seems to be done to a pretty decent standard. I have noticed though on some other things I've seen where they've got damaged, it does actually show the metal underneath, and it is alloy and not stainless steel. So yeah, it is what it is. The lugs are really quite short actually, and compact. Got a little bit of a curvature to them. The finishing on them is just the same as the side of the case. So moving on to this side, you can see we have 2 crown guards and a 6.8mm signed crown. You can just see that right there, it is signed with the Addies logo. And again, you know, we've got that same profile as the other side. So nothing really too major in terms of design, but you know, it's kind of well done for the price point. Moving on to that caseback, you can see we have a screw down caseback, and it is 316L stainless steel. We have the Addies branding in the center, and then a like sandblasted finish and a brushed circular ring with the engraved model numbers and specifications, and then some high polish where the actual screw is to undo the caseback. So the watch body and everything, you know, is pretty dense. The only real issue I'm having with this is the hands being high polished. I don't think they suit the watch all that well. I think they should have done a different finish on them. Maybe not made them as sort of shiny, but you know, that's just a personal preference. And the bezel, terrible. Other than that, you know, I'm quite impressed. So let's talk about this bracelet. So you can see it is a brushed finish stainless steel bracelet. Got these really nice sort of faceted links. And you know what, the quality is reasonably decent. The edges are a little bit sharp, but you know, it's a cheap watch. I mean, you can't get, you know, properly finished bracelet. There are the side of your link, they're like a shinier PVD style. They're not screw links though, they're just push pins holding it in. We do have solid end links though, which is, if I can get the camera to focus, there we go, solid end links. Really not expecting that for the price. The finishing is okay. It does get quite mucky easily, so you do have to wipe it occasionally. You can see, you know, it picks up grease quite a lot just because of the finish. But all in all, it's not bad. It's not amazing. But it's not terrible. You can also see that there's pretty much no taper on this bracelet either. Articulation is pretty good though. I'm quite impressed with that. You know, there's good movement between those links, so no real complaints there at all. The finishing is not the best, but the quality is not too bad. It's a little jangly. I've noticed. I mean, if you listen, it's a little jangly. But you know, the tolerances, you know, they're acceptable for the price point. Not amazing, but you know, not terrible either. Then we get on to this clasp. You can see we've got a pressed outer shell, 3 micro adjusts and double pushers, and then again it's just a simple press clasp. But again, I wouldn't really expect a milled at this price point. So you can see we've got fold over security, and you know, it does its job perfectly fine. So the bracelet, oh, the sticker's coming off the back. Must have forgot to take that off. But yeah, for the price point, I can't really complain too much. So now we're going to talk about comfort. And what I'm going to do is get this on wrist and show you what it wears like, because it actually does wear a little bit better than I thought. Right guys, so here it is on my 6-inch wrist, and you can see I do get some lug overhang, but then again, it is 50.5 lug to lug, so that's to be expected for my slim wrist. If you've got, say, a 6.5, I would actually say 7 on this occasion would probably be a better fit. I think the diameter doesn't look too bad because we've got quite a thick bezel. So the watch actually looks a little bit smaller than the size would suggest, but it wears exactly like the size, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's actually a surprisingly comfortable watch. I was not expecting it at all, given how big the watch is. Like I said, it does overhang ever so slightly on my wrist, but the profile is, you know, it's quite nice. I mean, we've got no really discernible gap between the bottom of my case, bottom of the case and my wrist. The lugs are well designed, and the bracelet as well, because it's not got no big massive male end links or anything. It's just got a flat end link. It actually really conforms quite well to my wrist, and because that bracelet's got good articulation, it really does flow quite nicely. again, you know, I was not expecting a watch this cheap to be designed so well. So yeah, no complaints really. There is the clasp on wrist. It sits, you know, a little bit to one side, but you know, I can't really add any more links because it's a little bit too big then. But it does just fit my 6-inch wrist. So if you've got smaller wrists, I probably would avoid this one. 6.5, I think it would fit. 7 is probably where you want to be to, you know, have it looking proper, have it fitting proper. Like I mentioned earlier on in the review, I did have to take 6 links out of this bracelet to get it to fit my wrist. So yeah, I mean, that's good. It does actually extend really big. I'll see if I've got a shot of this on wrist with all the links in, and you can just see how big the bracelet actually is. So I was really surprised that it did actually, you know, come down to fit my wrist with how big it was initially. So yeah, I mean, props to Addies, you know, for making it quite versatile in how many different wrist sizes it can fit. So what we're going to do is round the review out talking about the movement and how it feels to use. Right guys, so powering this movement is a MY050 quartz movement, so it is the 2115. So it's 32,768 hertz, which is, you know, bang standard for a quartz, 0 joules, negative to plus 20 seconds per day, up to 3 years battery life, and it uses an SR626SW battery if you ever need to change it. So first things first, we're going to see if that second hand hits its markers, and you can see that it's doing a pretty decent job. I don't think it hits everyone bang on, but it's better than some more expensive watches, including my Hamilton, which misses by quite a lot. So, you know, I think that's quite impressive. But now let's talk about how it is in use. And it's not a screw down crown, but you can see, pop it once, and we should be able to adjust your date. You can see it isn't quick set, so you do have to turn it a few times to get that date to tick over. Pop it out again, you can see that second hand does stop, and we can now adjust the time. But you can see we do have a bit of an issue. Look at the second hand while I'm twisting it, you can see it does move around and wobble ever so slightly, especially if I pick up the pace and start turning it really quickly. You can see the second hand does wobble. The crown feels decent. The grip isn't the best. It's a little bit slippery, so it's not the you know, the easiest crown to use. Even though it's a good size, there's quite a lot of crown to grab hold of. The grip is not very good. So I think they definitely could do in with some better knurling on this one. But you know, the stem feels pretty decent. I'm not getting any like grating feedback. There is a little bit like a bump feel through the crown. So every time you turn it, you can like feel it sort of, I wouldn't say it's like, I think it's like, it's really hard to explain. You can feel it like sort of vibrate in your fingers. It's very, very strange. I've never had that before on a watch, but you know, it works. It adjusts the time. We do get a little bit of second hand wobble, but you can see it just there. But yeah, it's adequate. It's running pretty well. It's quite accurate. So I've got no real major complaints about the movement. It's not the best quality I've ever seen, but you know, for the price of the watch, you can't really expect, you know, a really high quality movement inside it, because then, you know, they'd not be making any money on it, or it would drive the price of the watch up considerably. So now we'll talk about that price point. So this watch can currently be had for £22. I think that is a pretty good buy. Yes, the bezel is atrocious. It doesn't line up properly. Tons of back play. I think those hands, yeah, they don't really do anything for me. I think some black ones would have been really cool. Maybe done in like a similar finish to the case. I think that would have, you know, really tied it all in together. But you know, it's just a personal preference. Or maybe even white hands to match the numerals on the bezel. I think that would look pretty cool as well. Also, the bracelet finishing, it does attract a lot of like grease and stuff. So yeah, you do need to wipe it quite occasionally, otherwise it looks really bad. But other than that, for 22 quid, it's a good watch. I think this would make a great little beater watch, you know, to wear while you're doing like chores and stuff like that, or you know, if you don't want to wreck an expensive watch, something like this, you know, it'd come in handy. So yeah, I think it's a pretty solid little watch. Few issues with it, but at the price point, they're definitely not a deal breaker. Is there better out there? Yeah, at this price point, I'm not really too sure. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads. And of course, follow me on social media at Mr. Budget Watch. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.